Welcome to the Show Up Dad podcast, where we explore the extraordinary journeys of fathers who are committed to showing up for their families and making a lasting impact. I'm your host, David Mendonca, and today we have a very special guest joining us. But before we dive into today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for their support. This episode of the Show Up Dad is brought to you by Tallman Equipment, a leading provider for high-quality tools and equipment for the power line industry. With Tallman Equipment, dads can confidently tackle any project knowing they have the right tools for the job. Visit tallmanequipment.com to explore their wide range of products and discover how they can help you. Additionally, I'd like to give a special shout out to the Show Up Dad Foundation. This is a foundation that is dedicated to supporting fathers in their ministry of leading their families. Through their workshops, resources, and community, the Show Up Dad Foundation empowers dads to show up, be present, and make a positive impact on their children's lives. To learn more about their mission and how you can get involved, visit the showupdadfoundation.org. Now, get ready to be inspired as we sit down with Jeff Wickersham, the founder and creator of the Warrior Dad Experience. Jeff is on a mission to guide dads in actualizing their full potential and crushing life, both personally and professionally, all in less than 1% of their day. With his expertise, he is changing family trees forever. Jeff is not only a devoted father to his two amazing sons, Jackson and Carter, but he is also a #1 best-selling author, a Tony Robbins Award winner, and a podcast host, and a captivating speaker, I gotta add. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and get ready to be inspired by the wisdom and experiences of Jeff Wickersham on the Show Up Dad podcast. Let's dive in, folks. Welcome to our show, man.
David, thanks for having me. Pumped up and excited to be here.
For sure, man. Well, Jeff, I wanted to start off this episode by kind of asking you an offbeat question, right? If you could give one piece of advice to your younger self as a dad, what would it be, brother?
It would soak up all those micro moments that you think are going to last forever because they'll be gone so much quicker than you really realize.
Well, great advice, man. Well, let's dive into the story, brother. Let's talk about your story, man, please.
David, and I really like to start with my story. I wear a pink wristband on my right forearm, and I lost my mom to breast cancer 9.5 years ago. So when you watch the woman that brought you into this world literally take her last breath in from you, that fragility of life 2x4 smacks you upside the head, and it's like, okay, you get one trip around the sun, right? What one impact that you can make? What do you truly want to do? So that was really my inflection point of choosing to make some different decisions in my life, choosing to actualize my potential, go into personal growth, uncover the best version of myself, not only as a dad, but as a husband, as a leader, as a man. And it felt like the best version of me was dormant for 20 plus years until I lost my mom and I started that journey of personal growth. And now leaning in and just showing up as the best version of myself each and every day, being that leader for my family, being the tip of the spear, leading from the front for my two boys. It's been an amazing journey and quite an arc that I've gone through.
Yeah, it's amazing how sometimes tragedy is the thing that sparks the change, right? I have a similar story. I lost my younger brother in 2020,
Okay.
And that kind of sparked our whole journey of self-discovery and really delving into what God had called me to do. You know what I mean? That was like one of the cruxes. And previously to that, my wife, almost lost my wife too. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It was like God was really just trying to get a hold of me. You know what I mean? And I just kept on just plowing down and going forward. And, it was a real Jonah story. I kept running away from God, in those moments. But that's cool, man. It's unfortunately, I'm sorry that you lost your mother and stuff like that, but it's good that you're able to grow from that, and stuff like that. My question is, compared to before that happening, right, to now, you said about finding the best version of yourself. What does that look like to you now versus how it used to look?
Yeah, and my wife and I laugh about it. Old Jeff versus new Jeff, right? The different version. And it's having consistency,
Okay.
on a day in and day out basis of playing with, a boundless energy source of, hey, giving positive energy to my family. It's being intentional in my efforts, leading my boys as they grow up into to be men, right, in their teen years, and pouring into them intentionally on a daily basis, showing up the best version for my wife, and then leading others to untap that best version of themselves. Because, hey, for 20 years, I said that best version of myself lay dormant. I mean, it was covered up by alcohol. It was covered up by porn. It was covered up by gambling. It was covered up by social, these little things that just chip away at who we are as men. And it's almost like kryptonite dust, right? It doesn't kill you in the moment, but it just weakens you over time and over such an extended period. So, intentionally showing up for others and giving them the path. And when I battled my demons and dragons, I've figured some things out from a consistency, from an energy perspective, from intentionality a lens that allows me to wake up and, hey, today is a gift that we get to speak, right? Every day that I'm above ground, I feel as like as a gift from the passing of my mother 9.5 years ago. So that's really what it looks like for me now in these days.
And it's interesting, Jeff, because you talked about this lens, right? And a lot of times we look at the world through a lens of pain, right? And I know, like, even with some of the people I deal with and pastor, everything they look out is through this pain, right? This lens of pain, and they try to mask it with alcohol and stuff like that, And the way we deal with it, the way I help these young men, is to be able to destroy the fruit. You have to kill the tree, right? You have to kill the root. So we have to go back to what is causing that pain, because alcohol, pornography, all that, these are secondary symptoms, something deeper, you know what I mean? And dude, that hurts when you go back like that, right? It's uncomfortable, right?
It is. And it's out of the ordinary, right? I mean, how many 90% of people drink alcohol, right? I mean, porn is so prevalent everywhere. You see a gambling ad, every single sports event, it's everywhere. So it's taken that uncommon path. I've told my sons for years as they've grown up, you see the herd going one way, you better have enough courage and confidence to go the other way, because you don't want to go the path of the herd. And, they are going the other way. And I've seen that kind of come to fruition. So that's been pretty proud moments from a dad perspective, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, how does, talking about that, Jeff, how does a father's present and active involvement in parenting contribute to that overall being and development of your child, per se, them not being a part of the herd, being a leader, right? How have you seen that take place as far as your presence?
A couple ways. One is being vulnerable with them.
Okay.
And sharing your trials and tribulations that you've gone through. I think that gives such a context, and they can connect at a deeper level when not only share your wins, right, but share your difficult times. I've had conversations with both my sons about porn and the dangers there, about alcohol. I chose to give up alcohol a little over 2 years ago to set a path when they were 13 and 11 to say, hey, you can choose something different, and I'm going to lead by example and show you that I can lead and do the things I'm talking about. So vulnerability is key. Another key component I love to say is answer every bid for your attention. When your kids make a bid for your attention, and this is one rule I've made with my sons ever since they were little. I said, if you ask me to do something, maybe it's throw the football, rebound the basketball, help them study for a test. If it's not a coaching call or a podcast interview like this, the answer is always yes. And then what has happened through that? I mean, they're 15. My youngest is about to turn 14. They still ask me to do things, right? The common narrative of, oh, just wait till your kids are teenagers. They won't want anything to do with you. That is totally not the case if you pour into your kids and are intentional with them and answer every bid. So being vulnerable, answering every bid, and then showing the way. Right? Yeah. We need to show the way, and we need to guide them. We can't tell them and then do the exact opposite. They have We all have this built in, right? BS meter.
Yeah.
Everybody knows when somebody's lying, they're not showing the way. So they've seen me for years show up and do the work. And that's what helps them also choose that uncommon path.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely got to be someone that they want to emulate, right? And you're absolutely right. They have that bullcrap meter. They know. Right?
They do.
And, what's crazy, Jeff, is one of the things that we talk about all the time is that hypocrisy breeds rebellion. I get a lot of parents who call in and talk to us and that we deal with our parenting ministries. And one of the biggest things is they're rebelling. And immediately I go back to, okay, well, where is the hypocrisy? Where are they seeing hypocrisy? And they're like, a lot of times they get offended. Like, well, what do you mean? And you know what I mean? And then, once you start searching and peeling back the layers, you see that, my gosh, your whole life was a hypocrisy. You know what I'm saying? And no wonder the kids don't want to go to church. No wonder the kids rebel against any kind of form of authority. You know what I mean? So that's good to see that the fruit you're seeing in your kids is by becoming, a better version of yourself and being someone they can emulate. And you're reaping that fruit, brother. Good job for you, man. Seriously.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I would say, we've got to take care of ourselves first. We got to show up as the best version. If we don't, our kids aren't getting our best. Our spouse isn't getting our best. And until I really started tapping into that and dialing in my habits, my routines, my consistency, being accountable for what I actually said, I would actually do it. And being, disciplined, like next level discipline that I never thought I had, that allows you to step into that best version of yourself. And, then everybody sees it. And you set the tone, like dad set the tone for the family. I like to relate. Just this morning, David, the entire family was up before 5 o'clock. We hit the YMCA together at 5:15 before school. You know how powerful it is for the four of us to walk in? And I always call it out to my family. Yes, I see a dad with a son sometimes or a mom with their son. I don't see one family entire walk into that gym ever. We are the onlys, but that is we're like a sports team, right? Connected. Hey, we're all into growth. We're all getting better. That's amazing to be connected at that level.
No, for sure it is, man. Just to see the amount of leadership passed down to your family and then just them buying into it, right? That's influence. You're able, through your changes and your hard work, being able to influence your children, right? And even your spouse. I always say that the biggest influence on a child is a father, and the biggest influence on a husband is his spouse. So how does your wife help you during this time with you guys' parenting and stuff like that, with that being said?
Yeah, she's a great check and balance to what I'm doing. I still remember when I lost my mom, I left corporate America about a year and a half later, ended up opening up a gym. I still had the bad habits I had in my 20s and 30s. I still remember, playing cards with the buddies, drinking beer till 2 a.m. Woke up on a Saturday to go teach a fitness class at 8 a.m. Went in to give her a kiss. And she said, I gotta be honest with you. How are you going to go teach a class about wellness and fitness and you reek of alcohol? And I said, oof, thank you for that. I appreciate that truth bomb. And it definitely resonated with me. But sometimes I'm a passionate individual, and sometimes I can go a little overboard as a fan of my two sons on the sidelines. She checks me in that way as well. And I'm of a growth mindset. And if I'm out of line, I need that. And I encourage that from her. So she doesn't hesitate to do that. I know it's from a great place of love and growth. And she knows I want to be the best version of myself. So, when she throws those, gives me those tidbits of wisdom, I take them in. And I take action upon them, right? Okay. Now and that's the other piece I see just missing everywhere. Dads aren't taking action. There's just such a lack of action. We have knowledge, David. We have more knowledge than we've ever had in the history of the world. We got supercomputers in our hands. Dads know what to do. They just don't take action. They procrastinate. They think they're going to do it tomorrow. And the next thing you know, they're 2 years down the road. We need to take action. And we need to move forward. And that's a key to growth as well.
I always like to ask people, why do you feel that people like fathers, right, or men, why do they procrastinate? They know to do the right thing, and you just hit the nail right on the head, right? There's more information out there than ever before, but yet they still refuse to do it. Why do you feel that is?
Yeah, two reasons. One, they don't know where to start. There's so much information. Like, they have the ability, they lack the system. I mean, that's one of the things I do in the Worry Dads experience. I give them the system, right? So they don't need to think, here, execute, take action, and it shifts them real quick. So not knowing where to start, that's where should I start here? Hey, just start anywhere, right? If imperfect action is so much more important, taking the first step is so much more important than trying to figure out the whole staircase or the whole path, right? It's going to change anyway. So that would be number one. Number two, Dave, it's accountability. There's a lack of accountability. You become an adult, you become a dad. Who are you held accountable by? Not really anybody. A lot of dads come to me because they need that swift kick and saying, hey, get your stuff done. Move into the best version of yourself. Take action daily. So, lack of knowing the first step and having accountability are two huge components I see that dads are missing.
Do you feel, and I always take this back to the family because that's our ministry, right? Is leading the family. What I have seen is accountability. We need to teach that to our kids, back to the emulating, right?
Yep.
And we got to hold them accountable. And it starts by our training and discipline of them in the home. When they break a rule, when they do something that totally goes against the rules of the home, we're holding them accountable for that. I mean, I believe by doing that, we're training them to become accountable adults in life. Versus being an adult, because we all know that just because you're over 18 and you're an adult does not make you mature. I've seen 34-year-olds that are less mature than a 14-year-old. Okay. Yeah. So I think that that's a part of it, that big picture is raising your children and showing them what accountability looks like in yourself, to emulate it to them, and then also through training and discipline at the home.
I would agree with you 100%. And the crazy arc of that is when you do it when they're younger and when they're starting to mature. I mean, I get a kick out of, I'll tell my son something, give him a personal development nugget, a piece of wisdom. 3 months later, maybe I do the opposite out of just habit, and they call me out on it. And I'm like, there's the next level. Then it's that back and forth of the family growing together and pursuing the best version of themselves. And that's where the superpower lies, because so many times, mom's going one way, dad's going the other, and the kids are going every which way. When you can come together and do things that light you up on a daily basis, when you can my family, January 1st, we sit down as a family and we plan out our goals and our missions for the year. As a family, piece of paper, writing it down. My sons have it on both their boards. I mean, David, these are things that I had great parents. We didn't do these growing up, but I'm changing my family tree forever. I want them to know how, hey, you got to set targets. You got to break them up, chunk them up, chase it, get it done. That's the path to happiness, right? The progress that we all seek. So I love doing things different and changing the game and changing, my family tree forever.
Yeah, for sure. And it's crazy too, because, a lot of the men I deal with, they all say the same thing. Oh, I don't know how to be a good parent. I don't know how to be a good husband. I don't know how to be a good dad, because of what I was shown. Right. And we always fall back to that level of programming that we were shown as children. Right. And, unfortunately, when we do that, it doesn't turn out the best. Right. So like we have to change that family direction by stepping up into what we're called to do by God, first and foremost, right? And giving our wife and our children what they are owed, right? We are commanded to do certain things throughout the scriptures, right? And when we do that, that changes that directory, like what you're doing. I mean? You're changing that directory, you're changing that family tree. I don't know about you, but I came from a family of violence.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I came from a family of violence. I experienced violence myself, and I don't want that in my family. So I have to change that directory for them. You know what I mean? But it starts with you.
It does. And your kids didn't get a chance. If dad, listen, your kids didn't get a chance to pick you, and your circumstances that happened growing up. Yeah. If they were awful and you went through a challenging time, I'm sorry that you had to deal with that, but switch it and turn it from pain to power, right? I mentioned my mom passing. Yeah. And those first of everything, that first year, it was brutally hard. I mean, for years, I caught myself crying at times, right? For having that gap in my heart, missing her and just wanting to tell her I love her, right? But that pain transformed into power, transformed into purpose and passion and making a dent in the universe. How do I do that? Hey, one dad at a time. And David, the reason why I founded the Warrior Dad Experience and the movement was last year around this time. I have a running buddy. He had a friend, dad of 3, committed suicide.
Oh.
My sister knew a dad, took his family to New York City, bought him breakfast, walked out of the hotel, jumped off a bridge. Right? 2 dads committed. I said, it's dads. When I've had dark times in my life, the hole I went down deeper was because I didn't have the courage to ask for help. It's not a weakness to ask for help. We're all dealing with the same, very similar things. I like to say, if I teed up a golf ball outside of my house, and I'm not a good golfer by any stretch of the imagination, but I hit it, I'd hit 5, 6 houses in my neighborhood of dads that are really struggling. And if we can be vulnerable, we can share, we can ask for help, then we can grow.
I like that you said that, because you're absolutely right, dude. A lot of us have this mask that we put on when we leave our families, right? And we don't want to show that we're hurting or anything like that. And we don't want to ask for help for fear of ridicule or feeling weak or looking less than, right?
Yep.
And that is so far from the truth. You know what I mean? We need that. We need to be able to vent. I had a past guest on here talk about how when we deal with anger, the way men deal with it, it comes out, or when we deal with depression, it comes out in anger, is what he said. Okay. And that women deal with, their pain through depression, right? Okay. But for men, it comes out in anger, and it's like a toothpaste. So you have the lid on the toothpaste and you roll it up from the bottom, right? And eventually it just starts squirting out the sides and everything. That's eventually what anger does. It's going to come out when we're not dealing with that pain, or whatever's troubling us. And when we don't talk to other people about certain things, right? These got to be people that are trustworthy, obviously. You got to use discretion. But when we aren't able to come to people and be able to iron sharpen iron per se, talk to them and let them know how we're feeling and stuff like that, it's going to come out awful, and it's going to spill out onto our children and our families, unfortunately, and different areas as well.
Yeah. So true. And our energy matters, right? When we've got positive energy, man, our energy emanates out from us. And when you come into contact with somebody, they got positive mojo, you feel it and you're like, all right, I'm juiced up now. And you also feel it on the other side. David, I'll go back to one point as well with dads supporting dads, and, the male kind of bust each other's chops way it's been for so long. It has set us up for failure. I mean, that's the way I used to be, right? You'd be hanging out with the guys and we'd cut each other up. Man, we need to be so much more supportive, because we're all battling the same battle, the 6 inches in between our ears. We're all facing it. And I've now, new Jeff versus old Jeff, now I have people that actually cheer me on and encourage me, and I encourage them. And it's such a more powerful way to live rather than cutting each other up and talking about surface level stuff that doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. We got to have difficult, challenging conversations. And that's how we change the game as dads. And then we also set the example for our kids, and we can have deeper conversations and bonds with our kids as well.
Absolutely. And it's contagious, right, Jeff? When you start doing that.
It is. Then all of a sudden, when you're vulnerable, somebody else tells you something you don't know, and you can bond, you can help and support each other. And life's hard as it is.
It
right?
is,
I mean, we need to search out others that will lift us up, that will support us, and we can support them. And then, instead of beating each other up, man, we're building each other up, and you can accomplish amazing things when you're connected to those type of people.
Yeah, for sure. You show that vulnerability, and you know, that openness, and man, people will come to you. It's funny because there's an actual saying that I heard, and I love this quote. It's no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it was Franklin D. Roosevelt who said that. But man, it's such a strong quote. You know what I mean? When you go to somebody and you ask them, "Hey, brother, how are you doing today? Are you doing okay? Man, how's the family?" Something, dude, just something as simple as that. You know how powerful that is? How's your family doing? Yeah, I know we got this job. I know we're pulling in this wire and everything like that. But how's your family, man? How are they doing? How's your wife? How's your kids? Man, that's powerful, bro.
It is. And I would say, I heard this somewhere, that a leader's secret weapon is love. And we need to, especially as dads, love on our kiddos as much as we possibly can, right? We get 18 seasons with them in the house. By the time they're age 12, 75% of our time is gone with them. By age 18, 95% of our time with our kiddos is gone. You have limited time. Pour into them. Love on them. One of the proudest things my wife and I have with our two boys is no matter where we're at in the house, if they're leaving, they will come find us, give us a hug, say we love each other, and they head out. And that's we got to pour in. We got to show them as much love as we possibly can, and intentionally do that on a daily basis. Those bonds, they are forged in the fire of life, and they will be epically strong as you go through that process.
No, I agree with you 100%. That's what I started doing with my boys. You know, yeah, I'm rough with them because they're boys, right?
Yeah.
But man, I've made it a habit. I've purposed that every day I see them, I tell them, man, you are a gift from God, brother. You are so fearfully and wonderfully made. Look at me, son. I tell him, man, you are so courageous. You know, just something simple like that, you know, and just pouring life into them, you know, and I see them flourish, and I see their confidence just start growing within them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And at the end of the day, they want dad to be proud of them, right? At the end of the day, our kids want us to be proud of them. We can't tell them enough. I probably tell my boys, and I write notes to my boys and my wife every morning when I get up, and probably twice, 3 times a month. I'm just so incredibly proud of the young man you're becoming, right? Like just pouring in and making sure they know they're loved and we're proud of them. It's going to spur them on to make those uncommon choices. It's going to spur them on to chase their dreams and be the best version of themselves. And, you know, that's our legacy.
Yeah.
And I think so many times dads aren't operating on a daily basis with that legacy in mind. Like that legacy is going to live on many years past when you're gone. If you're that one dad, like I like to say, that changes his family tree forever, I mean, it could be 6 generations down the line. They're going to be like, remember that Pop Wickersham, that bald-headed, bearded, crazy dude that taught us all these things and gave us these gifts? Like that's epic. And at the end of the day, like I said with my mom passing, last late, deep conversation we had, she was terrified she'd be forgotten. You know, I mean, I don't want to get to the end of my life and be fearful of that, right? And I let her know in that conversation. I said, Mom, your positivity, your legacy is going to live through me. It's going to live through my 2 sons. And it was a subconscious proverbial passing of the torch, the baton that I didn't know then, but looking back, the dots definitely connect. That's why I'm intentional daily about the legacy that I want to leave, the impact I want to have with other dads, to give them a glimpse of hope and of giving them that system to uncover the best version of themselves. Because once I think it was in the documentary Finding Joe, it's out on YouTube. It's my coach and some others. And there's a story of this old golden Buddha. And there was a army that was invading. So they covered up the Buddha. Army left dozens of years after, and they went to move the Buddha because it was all covered up with all this stuff. And somebody broke off a little piece and they saw gold underneath, and they were like, oh my God, it's all gold. And that's basically what happens when you break off a little bit of your potential and all of a sudden you start to see it. Then it's that never ending quest of hey, how do I get a little bit better today than I was yesterday?
Hmm. Hmm. No, you're absolutely right. Jeff, when you were talking about legacy, man, I was just thinking, I was like, man, legacy, and you're absolutely right. Our children are our legacy, right? With that being said, I had a conversation and a deep thought with my daughter the other day. She's 17 years old.
Okay.
And we're talking about how we're watching, I think it was 1823 or one of or 18, I don't know. It's one of those spin-offs of Yellowstone, right? It's real big right now. 1883 is what it was. And I had this conclusion or this thought that I shared with her. I was like, man, do you understand that? Because she was impressed with all the hardships and everything that people have to come to this new world and make their way westward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everything they had to go through. And she was really impressed. And I was like, well, think about it. You're only here because your grandpa, your grandma, and the courage that it took to come this way, they survived. Your grandma and grandpa survived. They survived plagues. They survived famine. They survived war. They survived the trip. They survived Native Americans. They survived all these crazy things for you to be here today. And man, that's legacy. If you think about it, you know what I mean? All these people and everything they did from all the way back then till now, we are here because of what they did.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why gratitude is so incredibly powerful, right? When you tune into it, when you practice it on a daily basis, right? We've got the reticular activating system, the RAS, right? Where everybody's experienced it. You bought a truck or a new car, all of a sudden you see them everywhere on the road. That's when the reticular activating system is tuned into it. Well, if we do it from a gratitude perspective, all of a sudden you see more things to be grateful for. All of a sudden you get a micro moment with your kids. I remember a couple of weeks ago having it with my family where my wife was reading, I was reading, my boys were doing homework. I just looked over and I have limited time left with them in the house. And I just was brought to tears of emotion, just soaking it in and just saying, man, isn't this just a special moment, us being here as a family? And you get so much more in tuned to things to be grateful for when you practice it on a daily basis. Because to your point, hey, there was a lot that got us here to this point, right? I have ancestors on my mom's side that were in the Revolutionary War, that marched from like Lexington and Concord. So it's like amazing when you think about legacy, and gratitude's a great way to dial that in, because it's just, and the crazy thing about gratitude, you practice it over a 10-week period, it increases your happiness level by 25%.
Wow.
Just by why? Because all of a sudden you see more things to be grateful for. So it increases your happiness level. Like these small, simple things that we can do and then share with our kiddos has a profound impact on how we operate, they operate, and then the rest, then it ripples out to other people. And that's how we change society. That's how we change the world, one person at a time, but it's amazingly powerful. I love the power of gratitude.
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely contagious, man. And the opposite is true as well. When you're not grateful for things, and, you're negative, I'd like to say, you know what I'm saying? Man, that rubs off. I've seen it even on crews that I've worked with and with people, and it's like, oh, just get them out of here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you need to be acutely aware of it, right? Because we're wired for negativity. I mean, that's why the news is all negative, right? I call it the negativity principle, where anything negative or perceived as negative is amplified 8 to 9 to 10 times more than a positive emotion. That's why things stick with us, right? Negative things happen, and man, you ruminate on that for days, weeks, and months. We got to be aware of it. I love to say, hey, set a timer for 3 minutes. If a dad's listening, something negative happens, set a timer for 3 minutes. You can yell, scream, punch, kick, whatever. When that alarm goes off, write it down, toss it in the trash bin, and be done with it, and have like this symbolic gesture of moving forward. That's how we can stay on that positive train, especially when negativity creeps in.
I like that. I never heard that before, Jeff. That's a great analogy there, man. I think I'm going to try that because, man, so oftentimes you get caught in that negative space, you know what I mean? And like you said, you're dwelling on it, right? And you're meditating on it, because that's what you're doing. You're meditating on what you perceive, or whatever it may be, that's negative. And man, it'll just change your whole outcome, your whole trajectory, your whole day. It'll ruin every single thing, dude. It's like cancer.
It is. And that's why one of the things I love to have dads do, and I know you mentioned the intro, 1% of their day. I mean, 1% of your day is 14 minutes, 24 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I guide dads into crushing that first part of their mornings. Because if you can start on that positive train, that positive route, that positive path, before you let negativity in, you're so much more equipped to take it on. Right? When you stack wins real quick in a condensed under 15 minute period of time, 7 wins, you're not checking your phone, no distractions. You're not hitting the snooze button. You're getting wins real quick. And then you can take that negativity, and you know what? You're kind of strong when it comes to things. What happens when you're strong when negative? It just bounces off you. I ain't listening to that stuff. I ain't paying too much attention to what's going on there. And it's an amazing way to build a foundation to really attack life, not only, from a professional perspective, but hey, as a dad, personally, it's an amazing way to start your days.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Now, we talked about that, Jeff, and we also talked about love, right?
Mm-hmm.
I often say that love is probably the number one primary motivator in your home for disciplining and training your children, right? What are some effective strategies other than those two that will help a father to open those lines of communication and really connect to the children? What are some other things that we can take away or that you can share with us?
I love spending one-on-one time with my 2 boys, right? When you can get somebody, one of your kids to do something, and I like to do stuff athletically, right? Either it's going for a run or just for a walk, right? Walk's pretty easy to do. And you can get out and talk. There's some power into moving the body. It changes your state. And then all of a sudden you can have much more open conversation. So I love doing that, right? When we can get one-on-one time and do that, that's a powerful practice to get into. One of the things I've always practiced is when I've had to discipline my kids, and I've had to discipline my boys and be stern and a little harsh with them, and maybe they've gone up to their room when they were younger, I always made it a practice to go up and tell them, hey, I love you, and share the reason why this was the consequence and what's the different way to go, right? Because I think just discipline without reinforcing the love can alienate and create rebellious kids from that perspective. I always went up and hugged them and gave them a kiss and say, I love you. I didn't want to do that, but know that I'm raising you to be a good man in life and to be the best version of yourself. So those are a couple things I love to do from a leaning in love perspective.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. I know that disciplining is one of the big things within a family, right? It's what we're called to do. How have you seen, or what have you seen, or what have you shared with your guests or with the people you train on how to get on the same page with their spouse when it comes to disciplining? Because that's a big thing,
Yeah, having those conversations without the kids around is imperative, and I think they should be conversations. Maybe when you get pregnant, of having those before the kids are there, right? And then one of the things this year, David, that my wife and I have done, and I made it a priority because life can just happen, right? Especially with kids, and you can miss that connection with your spouse. I told my wife beginning of this year, I said, I'm making a commitment to you that we will go out on a date every single week of this year. Now, sometimes it might be dinner. A lot of times it's a half an hour at, a coffee shop where we're just alone and we can talk and we can connect together. That's been a game changer from a connection perspective. We've got to have that time to communicate where the kids aren't around and we can be off our phones, no TV, and really share what we're doing, where we're going collectively. And, but definitely from a discipline perspective, having that conversation before you have kids. And then as things happen, supporting each other and having sidebar conversations, because it is, it's a challenge. Luckily, my wife and I are on the same page, talked about that before we had kids, and it's been pretty smooth sailing. There's some bumps in the road like always, but pretty good from that perspective.
I like that you said being on the same page. That's the main thing. You can't be saying one thing and your wife's completely undermining what you're doing. That's not a united front. And children are crazy, man. They definitely will pit each other or pit parents against each other. They're master manipulators. You know what I mean? So it's good to see that united front and see that you're doing it as well. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I like that you said that sidebar. Absolutely. Talking on the side, not in front of the children, and discussing it. You know what I mean? That's imperative as well as, too.
Yeah. And I would add on that, just from a family dynamic, not only spouse perspective, making it a priority to bring this up with your kids, to say, hey, we love and support each other. That's who we are as a family. Like we've got a family creed, and the last line is Wickersham's love and support each other. Meaning, my boys are pretty close in age. They could be going at each other and angry and fight. I mean, no, this is what I've taught them. This is what we've taught them. You love and support each other. This is your brother. He's going to be supporting you the rest of your life. So, when I go to the Y and I see him, one rebounding for the other shooting hoops, like it that pulls on the heartstrings, right? Of, hey, they're living it, versus, to your point, everybody's going every which way and everybody's angry, a little agitated. That's a tough way to live. So we need to set the tone, lead by example, and share, hey, this is how we operate as a family. We love and support each other. That's a powerful place to come from. And that intentionality, I would guess many dads aren't putting that in practice and saying, hey, this is who we are as a family. We love and support each other. Hey, I know you guys can beat each other up. You're boys. I was an older brother. I beat my brother. We fought. We were rough. But at the end of the day, we got to love and support each other. And I think that's huge.
No, I can't agree with you more, brother. Well put, definitely. That leads me to my next question for you, Jeff. I know right now, through social media and everything, you know what I mean? It's all over the news. Everybody's talking about toxic masculinity. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts on that? As far as, a healthy man and raising up the next generation and stuff like that. Do you think there's some merit to toxic masculinity, or what people are claiming it is?
I have a challenge even just figuring out what that is. I think dads, I had this conversation with a guy a couple months ago, and he said, when do you think dads kind of went, sideways, or all of a sudden were poked jokes about? And I said, it was Al Bundy, Married with Children. I said, he was a dopey dad who sat on the couch, who everybody made fun of, walked all over. And I said, a lot of this reason, issues we got in society now is because there isn't a strong father figure who is leading in our households. So can you be toxic and be so over? Absolutely you can. But there's that masculine energy we need in the world, just like we need the feminine side of the energy, right? They go together. We need each other. So too often I feel like, number one, dads don't know how to operate because they're hearing these narratives. And maybe the narratives is you don't matter, or we don't need a man, or there's nothing farther from the truth. And our kids need that guidance. And you feel that itch on the back of your neck of your potential. It's something I tried to numb, David, for 20 years, and it never went away. I've had dads that jump into the experience. They feel the same thing. There's this just never ending itch that they know they want to scratch. They want to be the best version of themselves, but they can't get out of their own way. So I think from a masculine, we need it. We need that energy. The world needs it. Our families need it, most importantly. And when we can have that masculine and feminine, it's a powerful place to operate from. So dare to be uncommon, stand up and be the leader, be that positive energy force, right? Be the tip of the spear, like life. I mean, the warrior, why I called it the warrior dad is life's a fight. It's a fight for our survival. It's a fight for us mentally. It's a fight for our kids. We need to have that warrior mentality in every aspect of our life. What does a warrior mentality, that masculine energy mean to me? It means we take action. We execute. We do things, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it sucks, even when it's painful. We do that more often, man, we're going to grow and we're going to make an impact on our families.
I like that you have that, you know, that symbol of warrior dad, right? Because you're absolutely right. We are in a war.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the collateral is our children, right? It's our job as dads to lead our families, you know, and you're absolutely right, man. Men have been emasculated forever, you know, and it was a steady downfall. It started, before even El Bundy and all that stuff. It started with the Industrial Revolution, where fathers are taken out of the home and everything like that. You know what I mean? And there was a purpose to that. I don't want to really get into that, but there was a purpose for that, right? Howard Zimmerman, he wrote this paper on the fall of society, right? And he called it the atomistic age. And he was a Harvard professor. And he talked about the atomistic age, which means the falling apart. And he said that every civilization that was once great all fell, and they all had one thing in common, and it was the fall of the traditional family. Every single civilization, you know, it started falling apart. They were taking the man out of the home, which is the covering, the protection of the home. They took him out. Women started losing their inclination to even want to have children. You know, they started going on this feminist movement. All this different stuff, you know, and all those societies failed. And he goes on to say that who are we to think as a society that we can't fall the way they did?
Right.
And that's what we're seeing today. You know what I mean? We have children who don't know their identity. They're confused. Boys thinking they're girls, girls thinking they're boys. They're confused. Why? Where's their identity in? They say that children get their identity from their father. If you're not there, if you're not being that influence in your children's lives, what's going on?
Yeah.
And the sad thing is it's not even so much that fathers, like for me, right? A lot of the fathers I deal with are on the road, they're travelers, they're line workers, they're gone. We're providing a service, right? We are the backbone of America. We put on power for your comfort, and we do that for a great paycheck, but also we know that we're sacrificing our families, literally, you know what I mean? And we're doing it to serve the community, serve others. At the same token, there's fathers that are at home who are checked out, who have their feet up, who are drinking a beer, who are not paying attention to their family while their wife is having a nervous breakdown because she needs help.
Yeah.
And that's sad.
Yeah, it is. And I would say you mentioned the word identity, and that is something that is a huge part of what I do in the Warrior Dad experience. Because I say to dads all the time, like, I could ask 100 dads, what's your identity? And 95 of them would look at me cross-eyed like I had 3 eyes on my head. Like they would have no clue. Like we need to define who we are as men, as dads, as husbands, as leaders. When we define our identity, here's the amazing thing, David, then we take action upon that identity. And then we feel better. You know how we've operated? Most people operate their entire lives. They rely on their feelings to take action. And their feelings, your feelings right now, if you're listening to this, betray you more times than they save you.
Yep.
And then you don't take action. Then you feel crappier about yourself. Your identity erodes. And that's a vicious cycle that everybody's on. I help dads define their identity. When you define your identity, you take action upon it. It doesn't matter how you feel. And then you know what? You actually are accountable. You actually are consistent. You actually are disciplined. Your kids feel it, and it's an amazing switch. So identity, your self-image, who you are, you're never going to consistently outperform your self-image. So you've got to define who you are, who you want to be, and then step into that best version of yourself.
I like the way you put feelings, because they're fickle. You know what I mean? Too many people I deal with in our marriage ministry that we run, they all say the same thing, man, when they're having difficulties. Oh, I just don't feel like I love her. And it's like, man, love is not a feeling, bro. You know what I mean? And I think you're absolutely right. The way I relate back to this is because people are relying on their feelings.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's again, just like we talked about earlier, David, like, hey, if you had a crappy upbringing, difficult childhood, hey, it wasn't your fault, but it is your responsibility to fix it. Here's the same thing with the feelings. When you were younger, when I was younger and I had the sniffles or a cold, my mom asked me, how were you feeling? And I said, crappy. She said, okay, stay home. So we are wired in to listen to how we feel, but that doesn't serve us later in life. And later in life, we've got to totally go the opposite way. We got to define our identity, take action upon it, and then we're going to spiral up. So it wasn't our fault, but it is our responsibility to change the course. And also, when we change the course, then we change our legacy, because we can pay it forward with our kids. We can give them those tools, strategies, tactics that we didn't have. And that's why I tell dads to jump into the Warrior Dad experience. Like, we learn at the highest level, we learn, take action, but then we share the journey with our kids. Like, my boys have meditated for the last 4 years. They started when they were 10 and 11. They ask me all the time, Dad, are we going to be better than you? I'm like, guys, you're going to have 30 years head start meditation wise for, like, you're going to blow away what I do in life. And that's my job, to set you up that way. Yes. So is it going to be hard? You're going to have to put in a lot of effort. Absolutely. But I'm giving you everything in the toolkit that I've learned in my 40s that I wish I had when I was in my teens.
No, dang, that's awesome, bro. I'm glad to see that your children are, they're following in your footsteps, right? You're doing obviously something amazing for them. You're changing that legacy, right? You're changing that trajectory. With that being said, Jeff, one of the big questions that I get a lot of fathers asking me is work-life balance. And I want to ask you your perspective on work-life balance, because I have my own perspective on it. And just, through my experience and what I've come up with and what the Bible says. But what is your perspective on it?
Number one, the whole term balance is totally terrible. You're never going to achieve it immediately. What happens? It sets us up for failure, because when you hear balance, you think of a scale and it's got to be equal. Or you think of that teeter tot when you were younger, trying to balance, 2 kids on one side, 1 kid on the, you're just not going to achieve it. So I love to change the term to work-life satisfaction. Can you be satisfied on a daily basis, pouring into work and pouring into your family life? Hey, some days, David, work might require 18 hours and you only get a half an hour with the family. Could you be satisfied in that scenario? Well, if you gave your family a dedicated 30 minutes of just pouring in and telling them how your day was and sharing, you could probably be satisfied. Some days it might be the opposite. So I don't even like the term work-life balance, because I think it's set up dads everywhere for failure. And it's a never achievable target that makes you unsatisfied, kind of angry, like they're preaching this work-life balance. I never have it. I must be a failure. So satisfaction is actually a target we can hit. Like, can you be satisfied in both those areas each day? That's actually something you can say, look in the mirror at the end of the day and say, you know what? That was a pretty darn good day. I'm satisfied in both that areas, and actually feel good before you go to sleep, versus the opposite. Oh, I didn't balance today. I'm a failure. And you feel bad. You wake up in a sour mood, and then it impacts your family.
Man, and it does impact you. You're absolutely right, Jeff. Like you said, it sets you up for failure. And I agree. I can't agree with you more, because it does. But it does. When you can't reach that, you feel less than, right? And couple that with everything else the world is doing to beat you down, right? No wonder guys are going and ending their lives. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You're absolutely right. It's set up for, it sets you up for failure when you try to do that. And I'm glad I never heard it put that way. Satisfaction. I absolutely love that. I'm going to steal that from you. One of the things we always say is be where your feet are. That's our saying, and it's a lineman term, right? When we're climbing the poles and stuff like that, one of the ways we get our students to not focus on the height or the fear of falling or anything like that. It's like, focus on your feet, where your feet are going,
Gotcha.
Right? Focus where your feet are going. And that helps them to focus on what's happening, right? The task at hand, not all these other distractions, because there's going to be a lot of distractions in the world, right?
Yep.
And when we use that term, and I relate it back to life, it's be where your feet are. It's when you're at home, be at home. Don't be distracted. Be with your family. When you're at work, don't take work or home life to you or with you to work.
Yes.
Don't do that, right?
Yep.
Because how many guys are doing that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So many, and especially if they're working from home, like the office. I mean, I do, but back to identity, David, I have a work identity and I have a love identity. And I switched that identity from, my work identity to love, dad and husband of the year. When I'm with my kids and my wife, I'm dad and husband of the year. And I take action to reinforce that identity. So yeah, it's so powerful.
Man, I love that, man. Well, Jeff, thank you for coming on, bro. I just want to give you this opportunity to be able to share with our audience how they can get a hold of you. If you don't mind, I would love that.
Yeah, absolutely. So they can go out to www.warriordad.com. Got a ton of content out there. Got videos of dads that have jumped through the experience. You want to grab a time, talk. Hey, I'm always just looking to talk to dads who have that growth itch on the back of their necks and they want to change their family tree forever. Because David, to your point that you said, hey, the family structure, it's like been the beach, right? It's just been eroded over time, and we need to get back to our roots there. And that's the mission. The mission of the Warrior Dad growth and brotherhood is impact, lead, guide 1 million dads, elevate 2+ million kids by January 1st, 2053. So that's the North Star. That's where we're headed. I'm dedicating my life to it. And thewarriordad.com, check out, and would love to talk to you.
Well, right on, brother. Once again, thank you, and God bless you in your endeavors, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks, David.